Hey there, my most amazing artist, Miss Pelavon here to show you the instructions for continuing on with your cherry blossom artwork. Last time when you came to art, we made a wet on wet painting of some sky colors. You chose three analogous colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel to fill your sky and just fill up your paper. And we left the moon white so that it stood out against the colorful sky. Today we're going to focus on some things from Japan. The first thing that we're going to include in our artwork is Mount Fuji. And Mount Fuji is a very famous mountain in Japan, and it's very well known. So it's kind of an image that most people would associate with Japan. So in this artwork here by Hokusai, Mount Fuji is located right here, and it's very far away. So it's kind of small because it's so far away, but Mount Fuji is really a large mountain. We're going to include Mount Fuji in our artwork down at the bottom, and then we're going to add some cherry blossoms on our paper using some paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw Mount Fuji, then I'm going to paint it with some of my tempera paint, and then I'm going to add the cherry blossoms last. So cherry blossoms are important because they are known to be from Japan. They're called sakura in Japanese, and Japan gave the United States quite a few cherry blossom trees, and they are located in Washington, D.C. So it's kind of something close to us that comes every spring, and they start to blossom, and they're really pretty. So let's start with Mount Fuji. So I want to get the shape of Mount Fuji drawn on the bottom of my paper. My paper is vertical, which means it's tall, and I'm going to try and copy the shape of just Mount Fuji. I'm not going to worry about these waves because this is a different artwork, but I wanted you to see the shape of Mount Fuji. It looks kind of like a triangle with a little flat top, and it's very pointy. The slopes on the side of the mountain are very high. Like, it's not a wide triangle, it's kind of pointy. So when I do my Mount Fuji, I'm going to start on the side here. I'm gently sketching, just not pressing down hard with my pencil. Then I'm going to make a little flat top. I don't want to make it wide. And then I'm going to go back down. So I'm just making a mountain. It's not pointy at the top, it's flat. Now you'll notice on Mount Fuji there's some snow, so I'm going to make kind of a zigzag line to show the top of Mount Fuji where I'm going to put the white, and then the bottom where I'm going to put my black. So now I get to start painting. I'm going to use my paintbrush here. I'm going to start with the lightest color on Mount Fuji, which is white. So I'm going to use the white for the top part of Mount Fuji. And then I'm going to use the black for the bottom part. I start with my lightest color because then I don't have to really clean my brush when I move on to the next color. I can just continue on. The white's not showing up sometimes because my paintbrush has water on it, and it makes my paint kind of watery. If you want your white to be more solid and filled in, you want to make sure your brush is really dry. And remember, it's not about making your artwork look exactly like Mount Fuji. It's giving the idea that it is Mount Fuji, and you being able to express when you talk about your artwork that we were talking about Mount Fuji and we're talking about Japan and where Mount Fuji is located. So I just painted another layer on top of my white to make it a little bit darker so you can't see the sky through my white paint. Now I'm not going to clean my brush because the mountain can actually be a little gray. It's not a big deal if it's completely black. I'm just going to get a little bit of black on my brush, and I'm going to paint the bottom part here. And if you want to make yours gray, you can double dip black and white on your brush. So to double dip, I get the white first, little tiny bit of black, and then I mix it together. If you want to make your mountain gray, that's fine. Just try not to mix gray on your paint palette or in the egg carton that you have. I'll probably put the paint in an egg carton for you. So I'm just painting in Mount Fuji here. I kind of like the gray. But you decide. If you want to leave it black, you can. Now I'm not really being very particular about the edges of my gray here because it is a mountain. It's not meant to be perfect. Mountains are bumpy. They're not perfectly straight. And that snow is definitely not in a straight line. So the snowy part of Mount Fuji isn't going to be completely smooth. The mountain isn't going to be completely gray. It's not going to be all the same kind of gray. It's going to be kind of different throughout. So you want to have that variety in the bottom of your mountain. You don't want to have it just be one color. It's okay if it's a little bit mixed up. So I'm just covering up that sky so it looks like there's a mountain at the bottom of my paper. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to clean my brush because I'm going to move on to the cherry blossom branches. Now at your table there's going to be some images of cherry blossoms. I'm just drying my brush on my messy mat here so that you can see what cherry blossoms look like. I don't have that picture with me, but I'm just going to do some cherry blossoms coming from the side. And I know that cherry blossoms are trees. They're not a bush. I'm going to use black to paint the branches. So I'm just going to kind of make some branches coming from the side. And even if they don't look like a cherry blossom tree, it's okay. It can just look like tree branches. So I'm going to just make some branches going across. I know on trees that when the tree branch gets close to the trunk of the tree, the branch gets thicker, so I'm going to make that a little bit thicker on that side over there. And then I know that little branches come off of the big branches in the shape of a Y. So when I'm painting, I can just remember that and fill in the spaces. You want to try and focus on that Y. And you can make little branches coming off. And try to make them kind of bumpy because that's way more interesting than just some boring straight line. So I'm kind of using the point of my brush and making them kind of bumpy. I can go over top of the moon. I can make some branches longer. This is where you get to be the artist and make choices when you're making your art. You decide how much to put in. You decide what you want the tree to look like. But remember, once you put this paint on, you can't take it off. So you have to be very thoughtful when you're working. All right, now to turn these into cherry blossoms, I think I like it that way. I'm going to stop right there. To turn this into cherry blossoms, we're going to use some of the pink paint and the red paint. Again, I'm drying off my brush over here. It's just water, so it's not a big deal. I'm just getting some of the water off. To make the cherry blossoms, I can use some pink and red paint and just add some dots for the blossoms. I don't want to paint on top of the black too much. I'm just making little dots. You can see that I touched some of the wet black paint and now it's getting in my pink. So I kind of want to stay away from the wet parts, but I can dip some pink and red to make some of the actual blossoms on the branches. So I'm going to stop there because my artwork will be finished after I finish all these blossoms and I don't want you to have to watch me. I will show you the finished painting when I'm all done with the video, and then you can get started with your painting. When you are finished, make sure your brush goes in the water bucket, your paint palette or egg carton goes on the blue tray, your artwork with the messy mat goes onto the drying rack so that your painting can dry and finish looking amazing. So our Mount Fuji cherry blossom painting is all finished for today.